late autumn frosts are upon us. The fire is going 24/7. You wake up and your ropes are all stiff in the morning. No, hang on, I'll rephrase that. Well, the late autumn frosts and fog is upon us. The fire is going 24/7. And as you can see, I've invested in some ski gear because it gets bloody freezing standing on this deck, cruising through weather like this. But yeah, this really works. It works really well. I'm not cold at all, which is great. And just there is something so serene and beautiful about cruising through the fog. It adds to the mystery of the canal. You know, it's really lovely. I haven't seen a boat all morning. Maybe everyone else thinks I'm nuts. I don't know. I'm just coming into just come up to Kings Bromley Marina. I'm gonna pull in here and get some coal. Okay, so what are the costs of being a continuous cruiser? Well, I must say I feel a bit like Ronnie Corbett sitting in this chair like this. Now I know other narrowboat YouTubers have covered this topic before, so if you are considering buying a boat or getting involved in a boat in some way, it might be a good idea to check out their videos as well, and I'll put some links in the description box below. And don't worry if I throw lots and lots of figures at you. I'll put a spreadsheet up near the end so that you can get a better idea of the monthly outgoings involved in being a continuous cruiser. Your major annual outlay will be your CRT licence, that's the Canal and River Trust licence, and the cost of this will vary depending on the length of your boat, whether you're trading from your boat, whether you want to access rivers as well as the canals. There are other variables as well, but for me, with a 53-foot narrowboat, my annual cost last year was £900, and for this I have the freedom to roam the waterways, use the CRT facilities such as showers, water points and rubbish disposal. And I'll also be kept up to date via email of any stoppages there may be on the network. But before you're provided with a CRT licence, you must have a boat safety certificate. A safety inspection is carried out by an independent assessor and I believe costs around about £150 to £200. The certificate will, however, last for 4 years, and if you are thinking of buying a boat, the chances are it already has a valid boat safety certificate in place. And you must also provide the CRT with proof that you have insurance for your boat. Now, the insurance really isn't particularly expensive at all. For me it was £226 last year, and that's fully comprehensive. So yeah, it's probably an awful lot cheaper than insuring your car, to be honest. A further optional cost would be paying for the Canal and River Rescue Service, who can repair or recover your boat should you break down somewhere on the system. This service starts at about £165 a year. I think that's for the bronze service, and you get 4 call-outs a year. The next largest outlay will be for fuel, and by and large narrowboats run off red diesel, which is taxed at a lower rate than the diesel that you would put in your car, for instance. And a continuous cruiser is also charged different tax rates for the diesel, depending on whether it's for propulsion or whether it's for domestic use, which would be running your engine to recharge your batteries or heat the water, for instance. This is the lower rate and known as the base rate. Higher tax is paid for the propulsion of your boat, so when refuelling you'll be asked what the split is. Now the standard reply is 60-40, that's 60% for propulsion and 40% for domestic use. The price seems to have remained fairly constant over the last 7 months. The cheapest base rate I've seen has been 80 pence a litre. 82 to 84 pence seems to be about the standard. I have, though, seen some holiday boat marinas charging a whopping 95 pence a litre for the base rate. Now, this is by no means the norm. It is, if you are refuelling at a holiday boat place, then by all means, ask the price before you refuel. That is, if they haven't advertised the price outside. I would say my average diesel spend per month, well, I know my average diesel spend per month is about £78 so far, which works out at approximately £1 per engine hour. My stove uses coal and logs. Coal is usually about £12 to £14 a bag, and logs between £4 to £5 a net. The stove is on 24/7 at the minute, and I'm using about 30 kilograms of coal a week and about a net and a half of logs a week. Monthly over the year, this is going to work out at about £33 for £33 a month for the coal, and about £11 or £12 a month for logs. Also, I'm cooking on the stove quite a bit at the minute, so this will obviously reduce the gas costs. Anyway, I'm going to talk about gas now. I have gas central heating on board, which I have to admit I tend not to use because it is ludicrously expensive. I will, however, use the central heating if it does become excessively cold, of course. Now, a 13 kilogram bottle of propane usually retails at around about £35. Although, that said, I have bought a bottle in Etruria in Stoke for £24 a bottle, which was fantastic, but £35 seems to be the standard cost. If I'm just using the gas for cooking on, a bottle will actually last me about 3 months. If, however, I'm using it for the central heating as well, it'll last a week. So you can see why I don't really use the central heating very much at all. Of course, other boats have different types of central heating, and I would imagine that heating your boat via diesel, for instance, would be an awful lot cheaper. But yes, I've got gas, so it is what it is. I've done a calculation based on my usage so far, and I think I'll probably end up using about 10 bottles of gas over the year. So that's 350 quid for a year. Then of course there's my phone and internet. Now obviously I use quite a lot of data uploading videos to YouTube, etc. And for both of them together this works out at about £49 a month. Now, I probably can get this a bit cheaper, I must admit, and so when my contract is up I'll probably shop around. But yeah, I mean, it gives you a kind of idea of how much I'm spending on that. The other thing is I also pay for a TV licence, which I am legally obliged to do, believe it or not. So yes, that works out I think at around about £12 a month, something like that anyway. You'll know because you probably buy TV licences at home if you live in Britain. And of course, to get a television reception I had to go out and buy a TV aerial, and that was £38 I think. And quite frankly, it's an absolutely excellent aerial. I would recommend it. Brilliant. Oh, let's talk about toilets. Now my boat has a holding tank which needs to be pumped out about every 4 to 5 weeks, and that's for one person on board. So obviously if there's more people on board it'll be more frequent than that. Now the cost of this varies quite dramatically, I've found. The cheapest has been £15, A CRT self-pump out is about £16, but then you have to put in your own blue, which increases the cost a wee bit. But the most expensive I've found was a whopping 25 quid at Aqueduct Marina, which quite frankly I thought was a total rip-off. I mean, the price seems to have gone up in the last few months anyway, and I would say the average cost now is around about £20. So yeah, £20 a month, £20 every 4 to 5 weeks. That's the cost. Obviously, if your boat or your potential boat has an Elson cassette, then this cost will be completely irrelevant to you. Okay, repairs and renewals. Now I've got to admit I've been pretty lucky so far in that relatively nothing has gone wrong. There's a couple of cabin lights that need to be replaced. This isn't just the bulbs, this is the whole fitting, so I'm not really sure I can really comment on this really. I suppose another thing you really need to budget for is blacking the hull every 2 to 3 years. Now, to take the boat out of the water, maybe in a dry dock, and have someone else do it is going to cost about £600 to £700, but that is every 2 to 3 years, as I say. If you do it yourself, hire the dry dock, then obviously it's going to be cheaper than that. And talking of doing it yourself, oil changes and boat servicing. Now my engine requires an oil change every 200 hours. An oil for this costs about 60 quid. I also need to replace the oil filter and the air filter. And every 400 hours I need to replace the fuel filters as well. Over a year this works out at about £240 on oil and £180 on filters. And of course, if you're getting a boat yard to do the work for you, then you're looking at least £45 an hour on labour costs as well. So doing it yourself, monthly cost, you're looking at 35 quid.
Also worth mentioning, incidentals like stern gland grease, water tank steriliser, antifreeze, gunk, toilet blue and toilet pink. All this will probably add up to another £2 or £3 a month.
When I first moved on board, I brought a lot of tools with me, but inevitably I've had to buy new tools as well. Spanners, oil filter wrenches, etc, etc. I've also had to buy outdoor clothing, especially for the winter. I've invested in some sort of ski gear. And also Nicholson's guides are indispensable really, and at 17 quid a pop they ain't cheap. Of course these are just one-off costs, so you can't really put it down to a monthly expenditure, but it is worth bearing in mind that when you do move on board a boat for the first time, yeah, you're going to have extra costs like this. Finally, there is what I would call making the boat your own. Now obviously when you move on board a new boat, you're going to want to change quite a lot of things. I've had a stove installed, I've bought a new mattress, I'm refitting the saloon, so there's various costs that involved in all that kind of thing. And of course I would like to add solar panels, which I'm hoping to do fairly soon, and in future I'd quite like to refit the bathroom. As regards costs, well, you could just kind of throw money at it, really, couldn't you? You know, it's whatever you're prepared to spend.
So, I hope I've covered everything, but there's bound to be some things that I haven't thought of. But hey, this should give you a basic idea of the monthly outlay for cruising the network. Next time, I'll be looking at barbarism on the cut. See you then.